I live in Berlin. I've been living here for almost 5 years now. I'm from Denmark originally. And in the ASA I was always representing Denmark. But after I graduated, I moved here and worked first in an office called Topotek, which is, my job was to design public space for them. And then I got the opportunity to make a project on my own, and that was kind of the launch of quitting my job and starting my own stuff. It was a very small project and it was a bit of a chance at that time, but I was really, really keen on doing it. So, yeah, and then it had to have a name, and my imagination stopped here. And everyone in Germany thinks I'm a woman because they think it's a Swedish name, Sigurd, so they have troubles with this name. This is a quick screenshot of my homepage, and my point is that I want to work very sort of transdisciplinary. That's my great interest, and for me it's not very important to focus a project into a certain group, but I had to do it. I felt on my homepage so that people would have a chance to find what they're looking for. So they're like architecture, furniture design, and art. And some of the projects are, at least in my opinion, overlapping between these different things, but the furniture design is being sold in shops here in Berlin and in Copenhagen and different online platforms, so people need to be able to find them, and you can also order them here. And architecture, of course, people need to see what they can kind of expect and so on. So on my homepage, they are nicely organized in boxes, but in reality, as you will probably see now, it's a little bit more mixed, and this is something that I'm really keen on doing. It's a bit of a struggle to me, but sometimes I have to really justify it also towards clients. But I really want to work kind of in an artistically free way sometimes with architecture or with furniture or whatever. And then if it sells or not, I don't know. We will see. The first one is, now we take you through the furniture projects first. The first one was the first piece of furniture I did kind of on my own initiative, because as an architect, and what I was also used to from the different offices I worked in before, was to have a client who tells you what they need, and then you have to kind of answer to that. And this was the first time I did something which I considered more artistically free. This was a piece of furniture I had in my head for many, many years before. But now, quitting my job, I had time to actually realize this. So I had this built from a carpenter here in Berlin, and it's about this high, so you can sit on it or use it as a sofa table, and then it has different rooms shaped after different standard sizes, and there's a secret room in the middle, and it's, to me, mostly about sort of telling stories about secrets and so on. Next. So this is what it looks like, and this was the first piece of furniture I did, and I took some nice pictures of it and made a short movie about explaining the project and so on. And this had very quickly its own life on different blogs, and first through blogs, which is kind of less professional journalism, and through that also real magazines got interested in. So it was really quickly well spread out, and kind of I didn't sell that many of them because it's awfully expensive to build, and therefore the price is very high. So I only sold a few of them, but it kind of launched a bit of attention around what I do, which I try to benefit from somehow. Yeah, so this is an example. I don't know if you see it really well here. There's a record player inside, and you can store different standard things inside. So it's kind of an object that I feel is very highly desired, but it's also in a way to me an art piece, because it's not very specific as a piece of furniture, which I don't find at all. And then I made a table out of concrete, which was fairly heavy, and the first prototypes I was casting on our terrace at home, and it had a long process finding out how to actually build the mold. It was the first thing I did in concrete, but I got completely obsessed with concrete afterwards, and we see that in further projects. I continued with this material, and I guess it makes sense because my background is I'm an architect. I'm supposed to design buildings, and then I started designing furniture in order to have a kind of a free space to work artistically free. And I use materials from architecture pretty much always in my furniture. I kind of have this sort of palette in my head of materials that I know from architecture, and then that's what I use because that's what I'm using. This one, on the other hand, this one was selling a little bit more, so this is something that could put food on the table for me. The first one couldn't really. And this one, then I went further into the whole idea about working with concrete. So here the idea is basically, it's a table and a chair. It's sold as a set because all the wood that you see is coming from the form used to cast the concrete tabletop. So nothing is wasted. There's like one-to-one completely. You take the next picture. Here you pour concrete into a form. The form is already cut out. So when the concrete is dry, you can take out the wood and sort of reshuffle it, and it's already cut out in pieces that forms a chair and the legs for the table. And next, this has the impact that you can see the wood imprinted on the concrete, and the concrete leaves a track on the wood, so the wood becomes darker. It's actually pine wood, so it's quite bright, but then it gets a little bit darker, and actually, in my opinion, sort of a more sort of exclusive look actually by becoming a little bit darker and nice, and then you get these nice surprises of water running down and stuff that you can control, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, this is again sort of using architecture material to make furniture. This is the kind of facade materials that you know from really unattractive architecture. It's normally they have a screw in each corner, but it's really good because it's made for being outside in minus 20 degrees and not losing its color through the sun and so on. So it's a really, really resistant material, and it's a second-hand material. It's actually compressed paper and resin. So there's a lot of good attributes about the material, but in architecture it's not really attractive. But as a furniture material, it's good. It's also super strong, so it's only 8 millimeters high. It's really, you can make these nice thin lines out of it. So what it basically is, it's in order to save space, you can put it together, but it's actually two little chairs and a bench and a table also. Yeah, then architecture. This is a house that is going to be done next week in Copenhagen. It's my first little house in Copenhagen, and it's all about saving money here because it's for a single mother with 2 children, and everything is very expensive in Copenhagen. So the square meter price has to be underneath 1,200 euros per square meter, which is quite a challenge in Copenhagen. So it's made out of prefabricated materials, and in order to fit 3 people into having a good family life without getting completely crazy, it's about making separations between them and still have a good common space. And the piece of land is only 250 square meters, so the whole sort of, in order to make the house appear bigger as it is, the whole garden is supposed to somehow be included. That's why the entire south facade is glass. So here you see the mother sleeps up here, a little bit separated from the children. Everything is simple. The outer form is just a normal kind of the way a child builds a house, but it's the maximum volume I can build according to the plan. So basically, the politicians have actually designed the shape of the house. I have to maximize everything here. And the whole garden is a part of the house, so you ring the doorbell outside on the street, and then you walk in. That's why there's also a glass door here, not a normal door. You actually enter the private sphere already from the street outside, and everything is then sort of visually, everything included. I had a bit of a struggle with the regulations, because you're not allowed, even in Denmark, to put so much glass in the south facade, because 2 weeks of the year it might become a little bit too warm. And although I explained them how the windows work, they didn't believe it. And then I had to in the end explain them about, I made a symbiosis with the trees. These are nice birch trees, and they are making shadow in the summer when it gets too warm, and then they throw away the leaves, and I explained how trees work to the and how they created a beautiful flickering light, and it was all beautiful and so on, and didn't believe any of it. So we had to put actually a little bit more expensive windows in 3 layers, because we insisted on having a lot of light inside. Because it's Denmark, and everything is about getting light into the house. We could not have any windows here on the side because of fire regulations and so on. So it's with small pieces of land like this, there's so many regulations. So in the end, you end up actually having to accept that these regulations will make many decisions for you in the process. But it's also okay. So that here you see a little bit of storage room. The kids can sleep upstairs, and here's a place for guests to sleep on top of the kitchen. If you take the next one, you can see it again. There's a little guest room up there, and you have a nice connection to the garden and a super simple material palette. Simply cheap wooden plates here. Everything else is white, and a concrete floor, which is heated, because that's actually not more expensive than a wooden floor, surprisingly enough. This was a project that started as an art project. It started as an idea about, it was an art competition in Potsdam, south of Berlin, and what we wanted to do was to make a little pavilion, which was where we would plant trees inside, and the trees would destroy the pavilion over 200 years. And it was just an idea competition. The prize was money. It was not actually going to be built as such, but. Afterwards, a client in New Zealand got interested in it, so it's supposed to be built in New Zealand now. If you take the next one. But it's unfortunately, which hurts the architect so much, it's been postponed twice. It should have been done already 1.5 years ago, and it's still not built, and it hurts every day, but those are the circumstances. But here the point is basically to build a concrete block and plant trees inside, and then in the beginning it's not, it works as a tea pavilion in the central point. And in the park in New Zealand where it will be built, it's an artist residency, and there will be small pavilions where artists are living outside, and this is the central point where they can meet and hang out and drink tea and so on. Here you see the point that in the beginning, it's not, in my opinion, has a nice form that I hope people will enjoy, but the action takes place really in 100 years when we are not here anymore. So the origin of the project, this art competition, this idea of a concept was, the idea of making a present to the next generations. We make something today which is going to be really nice when we are not here anymore. That was the idea, and we won a prize for it. I made it together with a landscape architect, which is an old colleague of mine. And actually the text about this building was a big part of the project. So afterwards it became architecture in the sense that we're going to build it, and it has to have drawings and have to show where the reinforcement is inside the concrete in order to control how it breaks over the years without hurting anyone and all that stuff. So it was an art project that will have to become sort of more into the architecture world in the end, because of all the practical issues that comes with it. This is inside you can sit between the trunks, and upstairs you can also sit in this nice space that will be between the roof of the block and underneath the tree branches, with the beautiful light situation and so on. We built a little model of it in concrete in order to try to figure out how this works with the reinforcement and the iron inside of it, and how it's going to break and so on. So we need to make a lot of tests with this. This was a project that I was doing for a client actually, and this was, the other project was about sort of a time span of 100 or 150 years. This was a shop that was only there for 3 days, so this is completely opposite. So it's about making cheap materials that you can reuse afterwards. And the challenge here was that it's for Zalando, a German company which is sending out clothes in all directions. So we sort of made references to how to send things back in the days when you would send a piano from Rotterdam to New York. You would wrap it up in these kind of wooden boxes. So we freestyled a little bit about that theme, and the collection was full of very, very different patterns and colors and so on. So it would look like a flea market if everything was hanging next to each other. So we did everything we could to separate things into boxes so it would at least be a little bit aesthetic. If you take the next one. So we made 3 of these boxes in different sizes and standard sizes. So in the end, it's also in a way a sort of scaled up version of the shrine, the first project I showed you. It works with the same idea about compressing standard sizes into a sort of very efficient form. If you take the next one. It demanded a certain level of flexibility. We wanted to have a shop, the 3 days that it was open, that was, even though it was a fairly small room, that you could wander about and not see everything from the entrance, that you had to really walk around things to go explore the collection there. But at the opening day there would be a big event, so we needed to put everything away and make a stage and so on. So it has a certain level of flexibility in it as well. Yeah, and we even added concrete, which has nothing to do with something temporary, but we were just so excited about it. So yeah, next. And then I designed a showroom for a PR company here in Berlin, which is still there. And we didn't know where to put this one. They needed a big display of magazines, and there was not that much space, so we decided to cover up the whole kitchen and then make this kind of James Bond door into the kitchen, which was something I always wanted to do actually. Next. And this is kind of an 11-meter long version of the shrine, and here it's all about the flexibility in the end, because they are going to show changing collections here all the time. So we need standard sizes of things so that they can change collections. So we have these small boxes at the same width as my head, so they can exhibit the headphones on them and so on. Or a standard belt folded once and so on fits into some of the drawers, and all sorts of boxes that they can reconfigure and change all the time. Yeah, so we called it a landmark. We wanted to make one object that kind of was the centerpiece of the space, and the rest would be a little bit more in the background. And that was the long one we just saw now. Here you see a little bit close-ups of nice old things and beautiful materials that become prettier over time and so on. This is a shop in Kreuzberg, not so far away from here. Here the idea was, because it was a former blacksmith, so we took over a really, really large space with dirty walls and leftovers of iron pieces and so on, and it was really, really beautiful and very typical of the neighborhood, and concrete floor and everything. So we just cleaned it up a little bit so that it was not dusty anymore, and then we spent, that's not a real person by the way, that's I haven't even noticed that. That looks horrible. And so we instead of spending the budget on painting everything and making it all pretty, we accepted that it's really rough because of what was there before, and it has nice aesthetics and it fits the neighborhood and the history of the neighborhood. So we spent it on very refined, beautiful pieces of furniture that can also be sold afterwards, because it works as a concept store with a cafe, and they sell music and magazines, and they have art exhibitions in there, and they sell clothes. And then, they can also sell our furniture. So I thought, okay, if I just design this once, it's over. But if I design design products that can also be sold in there, then I have a chance to continue something. So we spent the budget on developing nice furniture. So the white table you saw before was actually designed for here, and the shelves behind, and so on. So everything turned into products that would also be commodities that you could buy, and they would be designed to be strong contrast to the room. So they would be very refined and clean, and have clean cuts and so on, and be the complete opposite of what the room was inside, which I think would make both stronger. So it's working with a kind of a concept of contrast in a way. Here you are, looking in the other direction. Next. This was the very first project that I did, which is very different. I mean, every thing that you do for a client will, of course, build up its own world. And this is for Hugo Boss, so everything is much more sleazy here. If you take the next one, it's kind of a piano, lac kind of little islands and so on. But that was the first project that I did, and the reason why I kind of took the chance and quit and started my own stuff. So in a way, I also like the project. And then the art projects. This is a gallery in Paris, in Rue de Archives, in kind of the gallery ghetto, where we made an exhibition about bunkers at the Danish west coast. So it consists of 12 photos that I took at the coast, and 7 sculptures that we casted in concrete, of course. So these are some of the pictures. And it's not so much about the bunkers itself, it's about unintended land art actually, because these ones there's 500 of them on the Danish west coast, and they were built by the Nazis, and right after the war, they wanted to remove them because they reminded everyone of the war, but now they have become a part of the landscape and they are being used. And you know, when I was a kid, I was swimming in between them and just seeing them as part of the landscape somehow. And they're really, really beautiful. And because the sand is always changing and the coastline is moving backwards, they're also shifting down and sometimes end up in interesting shapes and forms. And really, really fascinating. We'll take the next one. So we casted these ones. They're not really, they're not one-to-one scaled down models of the ones. They're more sort of freestyle. If you take the next one. Containing things, because every now and then new bunkers show up at the west coast, and and inside you find old letters from the German soldiers, or you find whiskey bottles or whatever they had left because when the war ended, all the soldiers had to walk down. Nobody would give them a lift, so they basically walked back to Germany. So they left everything. I think in Holland you also talk, if you lose a bike, you say that it's a German who stole them, because in Holland the German soldiers stole all the bikes to bike back to Germany, right? Yeah. We don't have that saying in Denmark, but it's the same story. But anyway, these ones are scaled after normal. So one of them fits a whiskey bottle, and some of them still fits standard letters and all sorts of personal items. So it's in a way, it's a personal bunker for yourself. That's what sculptures are. This one I did here in Berlin in a former school for poor children in Berlin Mitte, and it's an installation called The 7 Crosses, which is about sort of the childhood fear. We'll take the next one. It's very dark here. Okay, there you get it. It's like sort of iron structures, and it's seven sort of wireframes, 7 crosses after each other, looking somewhere between a torture instrument and a sort of free space and nature. This is about eating habits, and this will be built in the Danish embassy in Lebanon next year. And it's about sort of a cultural exchange through food. Because in an Arab country, when you enter a room where people are eating, you sort of step into the middle of the whole company, because people are located along the wall. So you're the center of the attention. If you go to a Northern European eating situation, you are outside of the circle, and someone has to invite you into it. You're not automatically in the circle, so to speak. So we designed this sort of exchange piece of furniture, which is somewhere between a room and a table, basically. And both situations are possible here. If you take the next one, if you see it from above, some people are sitting outside, looking in, like if you're on a table, and sort of put themselves into the room, and other people arrive in the middle of the room from the other side. So both situations are possible, and it's going to happen at the same time as people are doing the same kind of concept with food and with literature and with different other things. So it's about a cultural exchange, and sort of my task here was to do this through furniture in a way. And then the last thing is going to be about collaborations, because obviously I can not survive and do everything completely alone. And most projects that I've done with other people and engineers, architects, artists and so on. We started casting letters out of concrete as a collaboration with a Danish graphic design company called Playtype, who has designed this font for a Danish newspaper called Berlingske Tidende. And those are products in I don't know, you don't need to study architecture for a lot of time to do these, but I think they're really nice, and it's all about the aesthetics of concrete and so on. I'm quite happy about them, and they have their own life also. They're being sold in shops in Berlin and in Copenhagen, and they're also online, and kind of, have their own life. It's fun. And this is the fun part about product design. You put something into the world, and then you see it kind of float around and being sold and end up all sorts of places. There's a Norwegian singer called Annie who used a letter on her cover of her album, which was released a month ago, and so on. So they pop up all sorts of places. So it's quite interesting. Then I started about a year ago doing collaborations with my former employer in Copenhagen called Kobe, which is a company that started in 2002, I think, and they exploded very fast. And now they have 60 employees in Copenhagen and 5 in Berlin. And with them, I did this dance theater in Bordeaux, and we actually won the first prize, so it's going to be completed next year, which I'm really excited about. It's a project that I'm working on sort of parallel to the other stuff. And it's the biggest scale that I'm working in at the moment. What it basically is, it's a shrine, it's a furniture, a wooden box inside a glass box. And inside the wooden box I have all the dance theater. But what I'm really happy about with this project is that we actually didn't really respond to the competition brief very precisely, because they wanted a very closed and private building where people could go in and rehearse dance and come out again in the afternoon. And it would be very enclosed and private because they thought it was an intimate thing to be dancing, and we turned it inside out and made it a much more public building that you could also use as a theater, and made it much more flexible than they had actually required, and we actually won it, although it was not exactly what they wanted. I'm really happy about that. As a compromise, it was very transparent on these pictures. This was the pictures from the competition, and we have changed it afterwards, so the wooden box is a lot less transparent now. It has this kind of arrow shutters in front and so on. So it has become a bit more closed, but I think it still works the way we want it to. If we take the next one, you can see the floor plan. Inside is a very regular wooden box, and outside there's kind of a buffer to public space of a glass facade. With the same company, Kobe, we did a competition in Lichtenberg in Berlin, which we got a second prize for. If you take the next one, you can see that it's an old hospital building where they built some apartment blocks around, which looks like this. So yeah, as the last thing, which takes up most of my time at the moment, I'm doing collaborations with these architects, because as a small company, I can never be pre-qualified for bigger competitions. So when I do that in collaboration with them, they have a large portfolio of great projects and so on, and with that we can kind of together get access to projects which I'm really keen on working on, because this is what I studied, and this is also, I teach at the university twice a week in Berlin, and I teach architecture, so this is, I think, my real profession, so to speak. And but it's a profession that can be a little bit hard to get into for a small company, so now I start through collaborations with companies to go in that direction. Yeah.